Hello, beautiful humans, or whatever you are. Back for another spiritual journey story time. And I think where we left off was kind of around the realization that just because you do a spell for it, if you haven't done the healing work, then you're doing a spell for the wrong thing usually, and that's why you're not getting it. Or you're not ready for it. And so it'll take way, way longer than you expect. So I guess kind of before I figured that out, but after setting the original intentions of trying to become a published author, I was also kind of leaning hardcore into witchcraft and trying to learn more about it. Like what was true and what was false. And growing up as a big fantasy nerd, I knew a lot about witchcraft and also nothing at all. There was a short stint in college where I almost became more of a Wiccan, which is a somewhat more modern version of being a witch. And it's more of a religion, whereas witchcraft is more of a lifestyle. But my beliefs don't quite completely overlap with theirs. So I guess I just say I'm kind of like a slightly pagan, super spiritual witch, for lack of better words. And I remember looking into what every witch should have and like what they should do. And obviously, sorry about the airplane. Hold on, I'll pause. I never realized how long it takes for airplanes or helicopters to pass till just now. Anyway, so obviously there's once you start to get more into witchcraft and into any spirituality, you learn there is no right or wrong way necessarily, and you kind of have to come up with your own rules and boundaries. It's not like religion, where religion gives you a set rule and you have to follow it or you don't follow it, and has rewards and punishments that are set by a human being and that are supposedly set through other people, etc. Not other people, higher beings, right? So there's people who need that, who that's their path, and that's what they follow. But if you're on a spiritual path, like non-religious, then you're going to be having to figure it out yourself. And to start off with, I wanted things to feel witchy, right? Like I was like, I want to go for like the whole aesthetic, and like I want everything to be witchy, but I also want it to be as authentic as possible. And I was even like dabbling with like, like how traditional do I want to be? Like, am I gonna go by the letter of ancient like witchcraft, and like how ancient should I go? And like, and then I started to realize that there were just so many different versions of even like traditional and ancient witchcraft that like it really is a free-for-all at this point. But when I finally met my goddess, which was actually January of 2019, her name is Hecate. She's pretty well known as the goddess of witchcraft, though she's actually the goddess of a bunch of other things. I'll get to a video about her when we get to January, which we're still in the fall of 2018, guys. This all happened in one fall, like all of this shit. When I deep dive into something, I deep dive like real hard, and I don't take breaks. So remember, I met her in July, my mentor, got my spell candles and everything by September, and was already trying to figure out like how to like set up spells and read tarot and all this stuff in the fall. So like it's weird. I like look back and go, damn, like I learned so much in so little time, which just goes to show that we actually have way more time than we think, as long as we actually prioritize what we're trying to do. And that is at me as much as it is at whoever I just attacked. But anyway, so I think one of the first things that I tried to set up that was more traditional was an altar. And I was like looking up like, okay, like what's the traditional altar? Like I don't care what all these other people are saying about like you can do whatever you want, because that doesn't, I like to learn rules before I break them. Like that's my motto in life. So it's not like I'm learning the rules so that I can follow them. I'm learning them so I know like what rules I'm breaking. So I learned the rules of like, you know, making sure you have all 4 elements represented, the god and goddess, or like the divine masculine, divine feminine, whatever you want to call it. And like a bowl for offerings. You can have like a bell. There's like all sorts of stuff. And you can look it up. It's pretty easy to find. It's like the most popular version, I suppose, to find online. But then as I started to like learn the rules, I then began to break them. I think the biggest one was, I didn't have an Atem, the ATHAME. It's like a ritual knife. And that's the thing, is you have that, and you also have like a bowline or a bowline, which is like an actual knife that you use in ceremony to like actually cut things, like if you're cutting up herbs or doing a blood ceremony. But the Atem, which I feel like I'm totally pronouncing wrong, is more to represent air element. And so it's just more like it's almost decorative in a way for your altar. So ironically, as an air sign, I didn't really have anything that represented air. Sometimes I would light incense on it. I did finally get a bell, so that was kind of my representation. But for the longest time, I just had this fake clear jar, because I was like, well, it's technically trapped air. So that's air, right? But my altar has morphed so much, and I kind of have made it more a sacred table of all of my like witchy stuff in a way. I do definitely work a lot with divine feminine and masculine, and I feel like that stems from being a Gemini, where I like having the dichotomy of things represented. But I kind of like changed around based on how I feel, and like one half always has things that remind me of divine feminine, and then the other half has things that remind me of the divine masculine. But I'll actually post the picture of my present altar to my stories. I also have an altar for my goddess as well, which I will get to when we get to her, because that was like a whole nother thing. But I started off with having my altar on my desk, like, because it was back when I was still kind of ashamed of sharing how seriously I was taking it. So I would put like my little crystals, and I had this pin board above my desk, and like 1/3 of it was dedicated to like witchy things, like different spells I'd written on index cards and symbols that were meant for like protection and stuff like that, and just like things like that, like hanging like upside down like roses pinned to it and things, just to like subtly have it there. And then I wonder if I actually have pictures of that somewhere. I'll try to find that too, of my like original setup, where it was literally like my laptop and all of my, at the time, my writerly stuff. And then, hold on a sec. And then on my right side, it was like literally like my tarot deck and my crystals and what else did I have at the time? Not much, honestly. I started off with like very little. I tried to do it as best as I could. But yeah, I think because I was hiding it, I didn't really give it as much space. And then I finally opened up with my partner and with friends in my life that I was like, no, this is actually what I believe. Like, this is not just a game anymore. This is not me just dabbling with some tarot cards and thinking these crystals are pretty, which never really was the case, but I would pretend it was. I finally was like, I don't want to joke about it anymore. I don't want to like pretend it doesn't hurt my feelings when people don't take me seriously. Like, I want to full-blown be this, and I don't want to hide it. And because I've honestly never been that kind of person. I don't like hiding traits of myself at all. Like, there have definitely been periods of my life where I've done that, but more often than not, I tend to eventually grow into my honesty. So with witchcraft, it only took me, I think, like a month and a half before I was like, okay, I give up on this being in the closet shit. Like, this is stupid. Like, this is not who I am. So then when I finally went like full blown into it, our dining room we didn't really use that much. So we had this giant, big circle table. And I just put like this red dining room, like, oh my gosh, the tablecloth, and made like this huge altar, like where the whole back of it was covered in like candles and incense and witchy things and crystals. And but then I also had all this space to do these like super intense tarot readings, where it's like pretty much like half of my deck used, and using any other deck I had at the time as well. And like, oh my gosh, yeah, it was great. I like went super hardcore into it. But then weirdly enough, like right after, I like kind of switched into making it smaller again, because it was like I wanted to integrate it in my life. Like, I wanted it to be more like everything in my life was magic, not just my altar. Like, I wanted my sacred space, of course, but I didn't want it to take up my whole life. Like, I wanted it to be like, if I make coffee in the morning, that's magical. If I drink a healthy smoothie, that's magical. If I go shopping and I find a shirt that I've always wanted in the right size, that's magic. Like, running into a friend I haven't seen in a long time is magical. Like, there's just so many mundane things that we take for granted. And as I was healing myself in this spiritual journey, I didn't only want magic, I wanted life to be magic. And it is. So that's my story about altars. But in the next one, I think I'm going to talk about my trip to Salem, because that kind of really kickstarted things. And that was October of 2018. So that'll be next video. Thank you for joining me for story time. I hope you guys are all healthy and happy and feeling better and more adjusted, and we will all get through this. So just have strength, okay? Sending you guys lots of love and light.